Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pungam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhajanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratise Namaha Nityanandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalau Kalmashanashaya Janavapataye Namaha Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Gaudodai Pushpavanto Chitro Shamdo Tamonudo Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashto Tarasata Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. And then I'm offering this my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering my Dandavat pranams to all of my Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga. And I'm offering my Dandavat pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So we're still continuing with the fourth chapter of Sri Nectar of Devotion, titled Devotional Service Surpasses All Liberation. Now, we're reading a statement from the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 20th chapter, verse 34. Maybe we read this already, I can't remember. But anyway.
I think we were reading the paragraph before that.
That's the one that we last read, the paragraph before that, right? In explaining this verse, it should be noted that the spiritual knowledge means understanding the self and the supersoul, or the superself. That we read. That's the beginning of the paragraph before this.
I don't think we read the whole.
No?
The whole paragraph.
Okay.
Anyway, no, you go wherever you want to go.
Anyway, we'll read this
Okay.
again. So, in explaining this verse, which verse? The verse from 10th canto, 87th chapter, the Vedas personified are praying to the Lord, where they say, "My dear Lord, it is very difficult to understand spiritual knowledge. They're saying, "Dear Lord, it is very difficult to understand spiritual knowledge. Your appearance here, just as you are, is to explain to us this most difficult subject of knowledge of the Spirit." They're telling, personified Vedas are telling, this is why the Supreme Lord has appeared. To explain this most difficult subject of knowledge of the Spirit. Not easy subject matter. As such, your devotees who have left their domestic comforts to associate with the liberated acharyas, the teachers, they are now fully merged in the devotional service of your Lordship. And thus they do not care for any so-called liberation. Your devotees have left their domestic comforts to associate with the liberated acharyas. And now they are fully merged in the devotional service of your Lordship, and thus they do not care for any so-called liberation. So this topic is being cited from many, many different shlokas we've been reading, how the pure devotees, because they're merged in the devotional service of the Lord, they do not care. They do not care for any so-called liberation. Because it's so-called. It's not actual. So in explaining this verse, it should be noted that spiritual knowledge means understanding the self and the supersoul or the superself. The individual soul and the super soul are qualitatively one. But knowledge of Brahman is very difficult to understand. There are so many philosophers engaged in the matter of understanding the soul, but they are unable to make any tangible advancement. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that out of many millions of persons, only one may try to understand what is spiritual knowledge. Manusyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhani. Then, out of many such persons who are trying to understand, only one or a few may know what is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, this verse says that spiritual knowledge is very difficult to achieve. And so, in order to make it more easily attainable, the Supreme Lord Himself comes in His original form as Sri Krishna, and He gives His instruction directly to an associate like Arjuna, just so that the people in general may take advantage of this spiritual knowledge. This verse also explains that liberation means having completely given up all the material comforts of life. Now, those who are impersonalists, they are satisfied by simply being liberated from the material circumstances. But those who are devotees, they can automatically give up material life. And they also enjoy the transcendental bliss of hearing and chanting the wonderful activities of Lord Krishna. So in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 20th chapter, verse 34, Lord Krishna says to Uddhava, "My dear Uddhava, the devotees who have completely taken shelter of my service are so steadfast in devotional service that they have no other desire. Even if they are offered the four kinds of spiritual opulences, they will refuse to accept them. So what to speak of their desiring anything within the material world?" Yes. So, again and again it's being stated that these personalities who can feel how insignificant is liberation, they are the devotees who have completely taken shelter of my service. So they are steadfast in devotional service. They have no other desire. And even if they're offered the four kinds of spiritual opulences, they will refuse to accept them. So what to speak of their desiring anything within the material world? So you remember that in the beginning of the Nectar of Devotion, there is a verse that is describing the 6 qualities of pure devotional service. 6 symptoms. For example, Klesh Agni, the disappearance of all kleshas and sufferings, burn to ashes. Its first symptom. Shubhada, giving all good fortune. Shubha, all good fortune. So, this is in the stage of sadhana. Which level of bhakti does sadhana bhakti reach up to? In the progression of bhakti from Shraddha up to prema, which level does sadhana bhakti reach up to?
Bhav.
Yes, bhav. Yes. All the stages up to bhav, they're called sadhana bhakti. What does sadhana mean?
Practice.
It means practicing. Yes. There are definition verses given. We'll later study these in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, the actual slokas and explanations of them. So, these two symptoms are there. They're there in all these stages. From Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Asakti. That means that all kleshas are destroyed in the course. And Shubhada, great auspiciousness is attained. Tremendous auspiciousness. Now, the next stage of moksha lagutakrit. Kleshagni, Shubhada, Moksha, Lagutakrit, Sudurlabha. So Moksha da Lagutakrit means that diminishing the value, right, of liberation. It diminishes, it surpasses, and it diminishes that. So, that liberation, we're seeing here again and again how the impersonalists are very much attracted to that, and they undergo great endeavors to attain that. But the devotees who have completely taken shelter of my service are so steadfast in devotional service that they have no other desire. So we were discussing how even in the stage of ruchi, which is still in the level of sadhana bhakti, but even in that stage, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sikshastakam verse, Nadanam Najadam Nasundari, Kavitam Bhajagadisha Kamai, Mama Janmani Janmanishvare, Bhavatag Bhaktir, Ahvaituki Twai. So this is corresponding to that level of ruchi. And then even the level after that, asakti, it's the beginning of the stage of bhav, but not yet. Because Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma is what takes place. Prema Suryam Susamyavak. That takes place when one has crossed into the stage of bhav. So, in the stage of bhav, these are the two symptoms. Moksha lagutakrit and sudurlabha. Right? Moksha lagutakrit. Diminishing the importance of liberation, moksha. How is that possible? Because in the stage of bhav, shuddha sattva visheshatma. But prior to that, ruchi and asakti are now preparing for the reception of that. So already there's precursor. And otherwise Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not have spoken that fourth verse pertaining to the stage of ruchi. And asakti is the fifth verse. Ai nanda tanuja kinkaram patitam maam vishame bhavamudho kripaya nijapada pankaja stitu duli sadrisham vichintaya. Now the mood of the devotee in the stage of asakti is that now I only want my relationship with you, O son of Nanda Maharaj, because I'm your eternal servant. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram, I'm your kinkar. This is also indicating madhurya rasa in that verse. Kinkaram, kinkari. So, I just wanted to make this point that these two qualities are for the stage of bhav, and then in the stage of praying, then there's also two qualities. Krishna akarshani sada. and also Krishna Akarshani. Always, this is Prem Bhakti attracts Krishna. Krishna is always attracted to Prem Bhakti. And also, one enters into, I'm forgetting that line, the Sanskrit term of most exalted ecstasy. Sandrandatma Visheshatma. Completely immersed in stage of praying, in transcendental experience of the highest ecstasy. Yeah.
I'm just curious as to where the references to those stages correspond with the verse. I just never read that or heard that. I just wondered. I believe you, but where does it come from?
Well, I'll have to look it up.
Somewhere in your magic pocket, you heard that.
No, it's a fact.
Oh,
it's in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, I'm pretty sure, but definitely in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in the commentaries of the Acharyas.
I have Maharaj's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Oh, okay.
I've just never seen that correspondence, but.
Okay.
It must be from some Acharya.
We'll try to look it up.
Yeah.
And find the actual reference.
Thank you.
Maybe there also. So
I've never read it there either, so I'm just curious. Because that verse would be quoted probably.
The verse would be what?
I remember that verse being quoted in Braj and Rahasan in reference to the correspondence of the different levels of bhakti.
Okay, I'll try to look it up.
Okay.
Now that I've been.
I just want to know where
now that I've been challenged on it.
No,
I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that in the course.
I would want to know where.
Yeah, sure, of course. We have to do that. Yeah. I have nothing against that, but I'm very sure that I heard it in the course of Gurudev's.
Okay.
Katha. That 2, 2, and 2.
I never heard that.
For the 3 stages.
It's really cool. I never heard that Katha.
Right. But, look, even logically, can we say that in the stage of, it's not mixed, but it's rather divided according to the level? Because certainly, in the early stages, that does not attract Krishna. Only praying bhakti attracts Krishna. Krishna Akarshani.
Well, when we read Nectar Devotion, because I read this when I was a new,
yeah.
I just thought it was everybody, I didn't have any reference to the different stages of bhakti, so when I'm trying to sort through what I understood as a new person, and I'm trying to understand that.
Okay, I will look it up.
Thank you.
Now, Uddhava just made a statement. And now, there's another statement to Uddhava from the same canto, canto 11. Similarly, Lord Krishna says in another passage of the Bhagavatam 11th canto, 14th chapter, verse 14, my dear Uddhava, a person whose consciousness is completely absorbed in my thought and activities does not aspire even to occupy the post of Brahma, or the post of Indra, or the post of lordship over the planets, or the 8 kinds of mystic perfections, or even liberation itself. And in the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th chapter, verse 6, Lord Shiva says to Devi, my dear Devi, this great Brahmin sage, Markandeya, has attained unflinching faith and devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as such, he does not aspire after any benedictions including liberation from the material world. So, then, similarly, there is a statement in the Padma Purana describing the ritualistic function during the month of Kartik, October, November. And during this month in Vrindavan, it is the regulative principle to pray daily to Lord Krishna in his which form during Kartik? Damodar. Yes. So the Damodar form refers to Krishna in his childhood when he was tied up with rope by his mother Yashoda. Dama means ropes, and Udara means the abdomen. So Mother Yashoda, being very disturbed by naughty Krishna, bound him round the abdomen with a rope, and thus Krishna is named Damodar. So during the month of Kartik, Damodar is prayed to as follows: My dear Lord, you are the Lord of all. You are the giver of all benedictions. So now Prabhupada's explaining that there are many demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva who sometimes offer benedictions to their respective devotees. For example, Ravan was blessed with many benedictions by Lord Shiva, and Hiranyakashipu was blessed by Lord Brahma. But even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma depend upon the benedictions of Lord Krishna, and therefore Krishna is addressed as the Lord of all benefactors. As such, Lord Krishna can offer his devotees anything they want, but still the devotee's prayer continues. I do not ask you for liberation or any material facility up to the point of liberation. What I want, as your favor, is that I may always think of your form, in which I see you now, as Damodar. Remember this verse from the Damodar Ashtakam? Can you cite the verse? Varam Deva Moksha na moksha vadhimva nachanyam vrineham varesha rapiha idam te vapuranatha gopala balam sadame manasya virastam kimamyai. Yes, so Prabhupada's giving the translation of that. So the prayer continues, I do not ask you for liberation or any material facility up to the point of liberation. What I want as your favor is that I may always think of your form in which I see you now as Damodar. You are so beautiful and attractive that my mind does not want anything besides this wonderful form. And then in the same prayer, there's another passage in which it is stated, my dear Lord Damodar, once when you were playing as a naughty boy in the house of Nanda Maharaj, you broke the box containing yogurt, and because of that, Mother Yashoda considered you an offender, and she tied you with rope to the household grinding mortar. And at that time, you delivered two sons of Kuver, Nala Kuvar and Manigriva, who were staying there as two Arjun trees in the yard of Nanda Maharaj. My only request is that by your merciful pastimes, you may similarly deliver me. So I think that one's an easy one. Everyone say it together. Kuver Atmajo Badha Murtyaiva Yadavat Tvaya Mochito Bhaktir Bhajo Kritocha Tata Prema Bhaktim Swakam Me Prayacha Namokshe Groho Mesti Damodareha. Yes. So the story behind this verse is that the two sons of Kuvera, who is the treasurer of the demigods, they were puffed up. on account of the opulence of their father. And so once on a heavenly planet, they were enjoying themselves in a lake with some naked damsels of heaven. At that time, the great saint Narad Muni was passing on the road, and he was sorry to see the behavior of the sons of Kuver. Seeing Narada passing by, the damsels of heaven covered their bodies with cloth, but the two sons, being drunkards, they did not have this decency. Narad became angry with their behavior, and he cursed them thus: "You have no sense, so it is better if you become trees instead of the sons of Kuver." And upon hearing this, the boys came to their senses, and they begged Narad to be pardoned for their offenses. Then Narada said, "Yes, you shall become trees, Arjun trees, and you will stand in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. But Krishna himself will appear in time as the foster son of Nanda, and he will deliver you." That Gurudev would ask Prabhupada, why are you called foster? But it was a preaching tactic. So, Krishna himself will appear in time as the son of Nanda, and he will deliver you. In other words, the curse of Narada was a benediction to the sons of Kuver, because indirectly it was foretold that they would be able to receive the favor of Lord Krishna. Then after that, Kuvera's two sons stood as two big Arjun trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, until Lord Damodar, in order to fulfill the desire of Narada, dragged the grinding mortar to which he was tied and struck the two trees violently, causing them to fall down. What did it sound like when they fell down? Crash. And even the trees breaking, the sound of it breaking and then crashing to the ground. They must have been pretty big trees. So, from out of these fallen trees came Nalakuvar and Manigriva, who had by then become great devotees of the Lord. Yes. Now there is a passage in the Hayashirsha Pancharatra which states, quote, "My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I do not want any resultant benediction from my religious life, nor do I want any economic development, nor do I want to enjoy sense gratification, nor liberation. I simply pray to be an eternal servant at your lotus feet. Kindly oblige me and give me this benediction." In the same Hayashirsha Pancharatra, after Nrsingadev wanted to give benedictions to Prahlad Maharaj, then Prahlad did not accept any material benediction, and he simply asked the favor of the Lord to remain his eternal devotee. In this connection, Prahlad Maharaj cited the example of Hanuman, the eternal servitor of Lord Ramchandra, who also set an example by never asking any material favor from the Lord. He always remained engaged in the Lord's service. That is the ideal character of Hanuman, for which he is still worshipped by all devotees. And Prahlad Maharaj also offered his respectful obeisances unto Hanuman. And there is a well-known verse spoken by Hanuman in which he says, "My dear Lord, if you like, you can give me salvation from this material existence, or the privilege of merging into your existence, but I do not wish any of these things. I do not want anything which diminishes my relationship with you as servant to master, even after liberation." So in a similar passage in the Narada Pancharatra, it is stated, "My dear Lord, I do not wish any perfectional stage by performing the ritualistic religious ceremonies, or by economic, wait, did I just read that? Yes, I just read that. How did I go back to that?
Is correct what you're doing?
Yes. Okay. I mean, there are 2 paragraphs back.
Yeah.
There's one that's like almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Got fooled there. So in a similar passage in the Narada Pancharatra, it is stated, "My dear Lord, I do not wish any perfectional stage by performing the ritualistic religious ceremonies, or by economic development, or by sense gratification or liberation. I simply pray that you grant me the favor of keeping me under your lotus feet. I do not wish any kind of liberation, such as salokya, to reside on your planet, or sarupya, to have the same bodily features as you. I simply pray for your favor that I may be always engaged in your loving service." Yeah, so Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. What are they called, these 4?
Dharma is religiosity.
No, but what are they called? What are they known as, this group of 4?
4 goals of life.
Yes, right? The 4 goals of human existence are Dharma, Artha, Kam, and Moksha. It's interesting if we analyze this, because it doesn't matter where on this planet, probably even just in this universe, where someone is situated. If they have a human body, then these are their 4 goals. And it depends on the advancement, of course, of their civilization. So let's analyze this for a few minutes, drawing from our previous understanding of this. So, Dharma. This is the first thing. Srila Prabhupada explained that Dharma leads to what? Artha. Economic development, right? So, what kind of Dharma is being referred to here?
Material religiosity.
Okay, and like, what is material religiosity?
Going to church every Sunday, praying to God, and whatnot.
But what if a person's an atheist and they don't go to church every Sunday? Do they still do Dharma?
They learned right and wrong, moral principles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Family Dharma, society Dharma. This is going on nowadays, even in the political arena, right? And so many divisions within that. Who's a real dharmic? Just like military Dharma. People all revere the position of a hero on the battlefield who sacrifices his life for his country and so forth. This is Dharma, right? Some conceptions of belief in God, religions like that are there. But even if a person doesn't have a formal religion, still there's a belief that there's someone is there, some supreme being like that. So by the performance of Dharma in human society, even if it's mundane Dharma, but if it's spiritual Dharma, true religiosity, praying to God and performing different activities for the sake of God. So that leads to what? Artha. Economic development. So we can see, like Srila Prabhupada, he said that in the Western countries, there is so much wealth, right? Opulence, wealth in the Western countries. But India had become crippled, right? Backward, even though they were one of the most wealthy the most wealthy, not one of them. They were the most wealthy place on the planet. And not just for a short period of time. Actually, this was in all the yugas. Only in Kali Yuga there was a diminishment of this. Why? Because the kings gave up their dharma. And they became weakened. And then invading forces, Muslims, then later the British, they were able to conquer because they were weak. They were weak. That was the eclipsing of the Vedic culture, became completely eclipsed. So that the Dharma leads to economic development. But what Srila Prabhupada later told is that now there should be a cooperation between the lame man and the blind man. Right? That is the principle that he was putting forward. That Western wealth and the strong lame man, but he's blind, he has no vision, he should carry on his shoulders the blind man who's lame and can't walk, but he has vision. And together, they can go forward. So that's the principle of the Krishna consciousness movement in terms of being able to broadcast the movement, is a cooperation between these two. Then economic development, it comes, and from economic development, from artha, then one can satisfy their material needs. Material sense gratification can be satisfied. And Srila Prabhupada is always talking about how human society can become very happy if they will focus on the real true wealth. What is the real wealth? Land, cows, milk, food grains, ghee, and all of these things, fruits, vegetables. When everything is amply supplied, then one's senses can be satisfied. And sense gratification is required for the living entity in the material condition of life. There has to be sense gratification, meeting the needs of the senses. But the problem has become in Western society that sense gratification has become the one and only goal of human existence. And Prabhupada would often quote that famous saying, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die." Right? And what's his name? The one Pandit? Charvak Muni. Charvak Muni. He was a materialistic Muni. And he says, beg, borrow, or steal, but get ghee. Yes, because ghee is the principle of full gratification of the senses. Unfortunately, in the West, now they have canola oil and all of these poisonous, very bad for the human body. And they're always trying to replace, and zero fat yogurt and this and that, no fats, right? So I remember, in Shamrani Didi's book, in the very beginning, she's describing about how she's painting. And she painted a picture of Narada Muni without getting full direction from Prabhupada. I remember seeing that picture also. I think she modified it later. But her idea was to paint like these, like Greek statue kind of bodies for the men, muscular and all that. And then she painted Narada Rishi like that. And then Prabhupada he said, no, this is not milk drinking civilization. He says, those who are milk drinking, they're a little bit fatty. And that's why you see in Indian art, always there's some little bit of fattiness, right? In the ladies and in the men. And Krishna, whose little baby, always quite pudgy and fatty, right? Because milk drinking civilization. So, Dharma, Artha, Kam. You cannot actually satisfy the senses without ghee, without milk. Without milk products, the senses cannot become satisfied. And so this is why Srila Prabhupada explained his strategy for Hare Krishna restaurants and things like that. But actually it was the strategy that he followed from the very first days of his cooking in the 26 Second Avenue. He would cook and he would use milk fat. And he explained there that persons who have been addicted to eating meat from their childhood and so forth, they become accustomed to what? To consuming the blood of the cow. But in that form of the meat and the muscles, yes. So he said that need of their body, which has been created artificially and not in the dharmic way, it must be still satisfied. Therefore, they must have ghee. And then they can easily be converted over. We are the guinea pigs. We experienced it. We tasted literally the results, right? And all of the early Hare Krishna temple feasts were lavish with milk products, with ghee, right? Samosas deep fried in ghee, kachoris deep fried in ghee, pakoras deep fried in ghee, sweet rice, curd, sandesh, yes. So, did we ever feel dissatisfied after such a Sunday feast? My dear devotees?
We couldn't move after
Yes.
Maharaj, you'll see.
Yeah, and even though, well, one last thing, and then I'll come to your question. Even though that was a special opulent day of the week.
Sunday.
Yes. But even on the other days, ghee was always used in the vegetable preparations, in the dal, and in the deep fried breadsticks. Remember that?
Yeah.
So tasteful. I've never, from that time, nobody ever makes deep fried breadsticks anymore.
I don't even know how to
But
make
they
that.
came out, they sent them out in big black plastic garbage bags, like a whole garbage bag full of deep fried bread. They looked like little logs.
You mean like a breadstick, and then it's fried?
Not that long, just short ones.
Oh, I
Yeah.
remember
Yes.
that.
And deep fried.
I remember.
Harikesh used to give it to me.
Harikesh. Yeah.
I never saw that in any other culture. Not in India, not anywhere.
I don't know, the devotees probably made it up,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it worked really good.
Easier than chapati.
Yeah, easier and quicker than chapatis.
Right.
And only one person could do it,
It's in the original cookbook. Remember that old
Ah,
cookbook?
there we go.
I remember that.
Now we're getting the references.
I wanted to tell you that when Shravan comes to cook, if he's cooking this year at the festival, he makes like buckets and buckets of ghee. He only cooks in ghee.
Yes.
And
Whoa.
yeah, the vegan devotees get really upset with
Yep.
him.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
everything will be cooked in ghee.
We are from the milk drinking civilization. Okay? Yes.
That's why, but at Wincove they sell ghee, but we're not supposed to get that kind. If
I
there's
don't
no
know.
other word where
What's
to get
that?
it.
What did you say?
At
At
Winco.
Wincove they sell ghee.
Is it
Yeah.
organic?
So if we got organic ghee, it would be, probably not. If we got organic ghee, it would be
What
alright.
would be wrong
Maybe
with it?
it's
Is there
safer.
any butter?
I don't know.
I
I noticed yesterday at Costco that they're also selling packaged paneer now at Costco in the cheese section.
Oh,
Actual
really?
paneer, like 2-pound thing of paneer.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Was anything else in it or just milk?
it's just milk.
No preservative.
Well, I didn't actually read the label,
Yeah.
but
We found out in the late 60s,
Yeah.
that was in an era before artificial
Yes.
things, that something called anhydrous milk fat, which was popcorn butter. It was nothing but pure ghee.
Oh, yeah.
Big tins of this.
Yeah, because I remember, I mean, the taste of the popcorn in those days was sometimes dripping in butter type thing. Yeah, so anyway, to finalize this nice, wonderful, relishable topic of Dharma, Artha, and Kam, right? So when these three things are properly executed by the human society, religiosity, economic development, properly, and sense gratification, then the human society becomes satisfied, becomes happy on the physical plane, on the mental plane, and then they can be attracted to develop spiritually, especially because of the ghee and because of the consumption of milk products. Their finer tissues in their brain, Prabhupada has always said this, and this is a fact, even Ayurvedically, that the finer tissues in the brain are nourished. And without those finer tissues in the brain, then one cannot think of the path of liberation. One remains on the material plane. So that's why, got milk?
But it has to be organic milk, right?
Well,
No.
best, yeah, of course.
But if it isn't, it's still...
Yes, well, that's what we always drank in those days. They didn't have
right.
organic milk.
And
you know.
Prabhupada considered it so important that
Yes.
Jayatirtha went to him in the early 70s and said, because they had made raw milk illegal for a while in California, and Jayatirtha said, Prabhupada, we can't get any milk except that it has some fish oil in it.
Yeah.
And Prabhupada said,
What
it's
can you
Kali
do?
Yuga, what can be done?
Yes.
Krishna needs his milk
Yes.
and must offer.
Yeah, he also said in that regard that in Kali Yuga, everything is contaminated. You know, so this is the problem. But nevertheless, I mean, now there's more availability, but you got to pay a much higher price,
So much money.
you know. So, but anyway, Prabhupada has already given the basis all throughout his purports, his books, how human society and how the devotees, how they can live in self-sufficient communities, growing their own food and grains and having cows and ghee and everything else like that. This is true wealth, true opulence. So, but when one comes into the path of pure devotional service and comes to the higher stages where they're tasting and experiencing the highest ecstasies, then they're completely, they don't want any material thing from the Lord whatsoever. Not one little tinge. We see that all throughout all these quotations from the Bhagavatam. This is the state of the devotees. They never have any material motivation at all, approaching the Lord. And they don't even want liberation like that. Or even the opulences of liberation, going to the same planet as the Lord. They're not performing their bhakti to get that, you know. It's not a liberation religion. It's a pure devotion religion.
But they do want that fifth goal of Prem Kamartha that Mahaprabhu spoke of.
Yes. Yeah, but he added the fifth goal. Yes. The fifth goal is Pancha Purushartha. The fifth goal,
Who added the fifth goal?
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He called this the fifth goal of human existence. Usually the whole pathway of Vedic knowledge is called Chatur Varga, the four pathways, right? But Mahaprabhu added the fifth, he calls it Pancha Purushartha. It means the fifth attainment of human existence, the fifth and ultimate. Prem Pumarto Mahan. Prem is the ultimate goal of human existence. Pumarto Mahan. So it's the ultimate artha, the ultimate thing to be attained. Yes. All right. Are we ready now, Hansa, or you need more time?
Ooh.
Okay. I'm not gonna rush you because We have the opulence now
Oh.
of having a pujari who's a little slower.
Soft-hearted.
You know,
Yeah.
that Narayan Higgins in Hawaii sells ghee, but it's super expensive. He gives it to Shamrani for free though. But it's so expensive.
Well, even in Hawaii, right? Those laws are there.
What laws?
Where it's illegal. They're selling, I know, because I stayed there a number of times. And they have to do it under the table.
It's
But
illegal to
so
sell ghee?
Well, look, it's the same law that is here on the mainland. Because the demoniac, cow slaughter industry, which also has connection with dairy industry, they've made laws so that only they and wealthy people can, raise cows and sell the cows. So if somebody wants to actually have a legal industry of selling milk and all milk products, then they have to be legally licensed and registered and use certain types of equipments, and there's all kinds of specifications. They have to pay a lot of money. It was about a year or year and a half ago when Nrihari and Baba Tarini, there was this dairy that's closed down on the Big Island. And that's where Narayan Higgins got all these cows. They were very, very cheap, and calves especially. Yeah, I was there. It was during our festival for Gurudev's Vyas Puja in the month of January, and they were rescuing all these cows. At that point, they had more than 100, and at least about 50 or 60 of them were calves. But, they had a problem in the beginning because the calves had never been with their mothers. They were already a bit grown, the calves. They weren't like tiny calves. And, they're taken away right away. So the natural bonding that occurred, and also the big cows that they got. So that was a problem. I remember hearing them talking about that, how it was a problem to get the calves to come and, drink the milk of the mothers and all that. But at any rate, later on, that same dairy business was going up for sale, and they actually had this whole plan that they were going to try to buy the entire business, which included all of the equipment and everything, to have a legal, business of selling the cow's milk. So what he's doing, Narayan, is selling it just to people, one-on-one, like that. But it's not actually legal.
Word of mouth. Yes.
Word of mouth and so forth. And also especially the devotee community, and they were also making curd, selling that. And I think they were making yogurt also, or the ghee. Not too much ghee at that time, but now maybe he's doing a lot more.
Amazing.
But one more thing, what I was going to say about that, forgot. What were you going to say?
Has been looking into buying a cow in Fresno.
Yeah.
And they're so expensive. Like $1,500 or I don't know, thousands of dollars just for one cow, but he wants to get one that's already pregnant.
Who wants to get?
Already in under here. They've been researching to get a cow.
Well, they've been researching for the last couple of years practically.
Yeah, but from Fresno, but they're super, super expensive.
1,500 is cheap.
Really?
Yeah, because
that's a lot of money.
Yes, but if you think how much you spend a week for the temple milk, and driving to get it, and it costs $6-7 a gallon for organic, and it would say you use 5 gallons a week.
But he wants
35 a week times 52. That's about the 1,500. After that, free.
But he wants a cow that's already pregnant.
Yeah, a milk when he's giving milk. I talked to Nityananda about that. He said you can get a good milking cow for $2,000. 2,000 to 2,500. Depends on how big she is or good, still young.
Well, they were also trying to inseminate our cow here.
Two of them could possibly.
Yeah, and then the whole discussion that I heard was they wanted to get these Indian type
Like
cows.
those
You know.
That's silly.
But I mean, it's just been
Silly.
continuously stalled off for
Yeah,
months and
yeah, 3
months.
years.
Sadhananda
Yeah.
has
No,
cows.
no.
What kind does he? Do you know anything?
Yeah,
about
well, I've heard. I've not seen photos or anything, but he has those kind of cows,
yeah.
and they give that type of something A2 milk, and like that. It's the best. They give less though, and then there's two different kinds of Western cows which are the best milk givers. One is Holstein
Holstein.
or Jersey. I don't remember.
Jewish
exactly.
cow, Holstein.
I didn't hear the joke.
Is it a Jewish cow?
Oh.
Holstein.
Yeah, so. But one of the qualities of the milk is better in one of them. So
I think
Anyway.
we should pretty soon get into it. You know, I don't know how much pressure we can
Oh,
put on.
no.
That's the center of this community,
It's
actually.
kind of
Uh-huh.
getting essential as the world
You
falls
think?
apart. We got to get our cow thing
In
together.
Odisha, they have those zebus, those little like
yeah, tiny cows.
Little
tiny
ones.
cows.
Right.
Wouldn't they be easier to?
Do they give milk?
Easier to what?
They give a little milk.
A little bit of milk.
Little,
Like a goat.
proportion to their size.
Yeah, they don't
getting
give
goats.
much.
Getting goats. You can milk goats.
I know, I don't want.
One thing is that the Indian cows that we see in India, all the white cows, and you know, the quality of their milk is actually superior to Western cows. Quite superior. The taste, the quality, the nourishment factor in it, like that.
So
So,
we were taking in Navadvip, just those.
Such an opulence. Real
But
yes.
they don't come up to the quantity of like.
No, their
3
quantity is way
gallons a
less.
day or something, no.
Their quantity is way less.
in India.
But it's really
Yeah.
good.
No, those
The Indian
special
cows.
cows.
Less than half. Much less than half. So,
Wasn't there
Okay.
a cow in Srila Maharaj and she left her, or was it Parmgurdev? She gave milk even years and years and years after not having a cow. Was it Parmgurdev?
I've heard of
And
those.
then she left her body when he left his body or something
Wow.
special. I'm sorry, I don't know the story. I thought maybe
Well,
you might know the story.
All I can say is cow Katha is very attractive.
We have to get some cows.
Okay.
Let's work together and get the conversation
Yeah.
going.
Jai Gaur Arti Ki Jai, Radha Krishna Jugal Arti Ki Jai, Nectar of Devotion Ki Jai,
Right.
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad Ki Jai, Srila Rupa Nuga Guru Varga Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande, Anisha Kaukita Rupascha Kripa Sindhu Piriya Patitanam Pavane Vaishnavi Namo